are live. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports? I hope all of you are making it a good one. I know that we are as well. Well, we can't not talk about it here tonight, but obviously, in case you have missed it, it would appear that Cory Raymond is set to be coming back to Baton Rouge, a topic that I know that you and I have discussed a lot on this show. Even within the last week, a lot of you have been asking the question about Cory Raymond. We will talk about Cory Raymond's return here tonight, as it does seem as LSU is set to bring him back to Baton Rouge. I will tell you what I think. I think a lot of you know where I'm going to go with this. We've talked about it at somewhat, at least what I feel to be at somewhat nauseum. What does it mean? Can LSU get better at that position, not only on the field, but in recruiting? There is one area I do think you obviously get better in, that being recruiting. Can that be translated into the field? We talk about that here tonight. Not the only thing that we got to talk about, though, is another coaching hire/fire was made today. Excuse me. Inside the state of Louisiana, that being Pete Carmichael being fired as the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. We'll touch on that here tonight as well. Probably will go on a little bit of a rant. Who knows? But we're here. We are here. We will not allow trolls, as you were in the beginning of the show, to be inside of here. All right, we will not allow that to happen. But lots to talk about that. We'll go around your SEC. I know that you think that I might be talking about this a little too much, but I do think there is a potential of some guys that were let go at Alabama with Louisiana ties. Does LSU kick the tires on some things like that? We will discuss that here tonight as well. I know that there are questions considering or continue to be considered around Tommy Rees. Seems as if South Alabama may be poking around him to see if he might want to be their next head coach. We'll touch on that as well. Yeah, I think we have tons and tons to talk about here tonight. If you have questions, thoughts, concerns, what do you think of Cory Raymond potentially coming back, or at least reportedly coming back? Put it inside the Super Chat, and we will get into it with you here tonight. Brian Tanya with a $5 Super Chat says, give a big shout out to the LSU dance team winning the Natty in Orlando. Yes, the dance team. My wife actually asked me about that. Like, Blake, hey, are you going to talk about the dance team winning a national title? I told her, yeah, I mean, we certainly can. I have no idea what to talk about with that. Maybe I could have done some research, but yes, LSU does bring home another national title, this time in dance. Congratulations to coaches. Congratulations to all the girls that were a part of it. And so congratulations to everybody that's a part of LSU that made that happen. It's a big deal, man. It's a big business. Obviously, when you see that many people and that many dance teams down there in Orlando, it obviously is a big deal. So congratulations to them. Ryan on YouTube with a $2 Super Chat says, LA Border Patrol is keeping the boot on lock. Look, I do think one thing that we can say, at least from this past year under Brian Kelly, even with this staff, even with the turnover of this staff so far, guys, 9 of the top 10 recruits in the state of Louisiana have either committed, Don McKinley, or have signed with LSU. There is only one in Wardell Mack who signed with the University of Texas. If you go 9 out of 10 every year of the players and guys that you want, yeah, not going to really fret on that. Not going to really just, I mean, that's a big deal. So does Cory coming back help that? I'm sure it does in recruiting. But let's not let it be a mistake as to LSU did get 9 of the top 10. Wardell Mack, I mean, I think a lot of you that follow recruiting closely enough know, I just don't know if he would wanted to ever be at LSU. And sometimes it happens, man. Sometimes kids want to go out of state. They don't want to stay in state or stay at home. Maybe there's reasonings behind that why they don't want to, and good on him, man. I mean, it's your decision. Who am I to sit here and say anything to you about it. Penn Jones says, can honestly say this is the only hire this offseason I'm disappointed in. Yeah, so look, we'll talk about it. I do think that there are multiple ways or multiple things to talk about it with. So yeah. I know that a lot of you will probably ask about the Texas 4-star defensive lineman DeAndre Robinson, who was released from his national letter of intent. He signed with Texas, obviously signed with Texas when Bo Davis was still the defensive line coach there. I would not I don't think there's enough to be known at the exact moment how this will play out. The young man is from the state of Louisiana, but he did commit to Texas and Bo Davis. Does he want to make the trip with Bo Davis to Baton Rouge? Does LSU and Brian Kelly want him to be an LSU Tiger? We can touch on it. I will tell you there's not enough there, at least from what I've been told, yet to make a determination. I wouldn't be surprised either way if he followed Bo Davis. I also would not be surprised if he went back home into the state of Florida. But the kid has never played football. He'd be an incoming freshman. Danny Girl says, do we know much about the Jake Olson hire? Embody reported as the defensive hire. Will he be safeties? Here's what I'll say at the current moment, Danny. Thank you for the super chat. LSU has at least not confirmed that it's finalized. What I have been told throughout the day on Olson is it would seem as if there's a likelihood that he will be on staff, but in reference to a deal necessarily close to being finalized, I don't know that yet. I think there's a reason why you didn't see a lot of people run that story yet, because when you look, and I'm not, there's a lot of good sourcing in that. I'm not saying that there isn't, not saying, at all, because there's a very strong possibility that he will be on this staff at some form or fashion. Okay. But LSU has not, at least to me, confirmed that. And I think that's why you haven't seen anybody else run it at the current moment, is because LSU has not finalized. Now, could they finalize it within the hour or hour and a half that we'll be on the show? Absolutely. That could be a possibility that happens. But at the current moment, at least for me, I don't have what I want to be able to run that. Again, there's a lot of good sourcing with that. Jake Olson was a guy that was at LSU in 2021, was at Northwestern State in 2020, made the move with Blake Baker to Missouri, had been there for 2 years as a defensive analyst, and now looks to be coming back to LSU. We will talk about it when that is completely final. Again, could be completely final when we are on the show, which we will talk about it if it is. But at the current moment, I do not feel like I have enough to run the story yet, even though I do think that there's a lot of possibilities behind it. A lot of good sourcing behind it too. So, yeah, thank you for the super chat on that, Danny Girl. John Sibley Butler says, Cory is a great hire. He will recruit the dogs that will hit the field and make the plays. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that we have we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it, because I don't want to get into it right now, because that is obviously is going to be the big portion of our show. LSU Capital, what's up, guys? Says, big game for Coach McMahon and the Tigers tomorrow. Boot up. Yeah, I thought it was tonight. I actually thought for whatever reason today was Wednesday. I have no earthly idea why, and said we'd be going live after the show, or live after the game. Completely thought it was Thursday. Shout out to our good friends over at Mic'd Up. They told us, hey, man, game's tomorrow. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's get rolling. We don't have a lot of time to waste, and I'm sure you are all here to talk about the Cory Raymond news, so let's get to it. Everybody do us a favor and hit that like and share. If you're on Facebook, like, share to all those social media pages or groups, whatever you call them. Share to your own social media pages. Every time you hit the like, every time you hit the share, I was told that a new LSU fan was born. Why not do it? If you're watching this, listen to us live on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell. We're putting a lot of content, shorts, podcasts, clip videos, live shows. Obviously, there's so much content that is on our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, 55% of you watch the show and don't even hit the subscribe button. Why not? You're coming back every night. Do us a favor by hitting that subscribe and notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate you doing that. I've asked before if you can do it for us again. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, do us a favor. Just go ahead and hit that 5-star rating. Leave a little bit of a review. There are some Rudy Poos that are out there that have left us some 1-star reviews. For whatever reason, they think it's funny to continue to do it. That's on you. You got to meet your maker at some point. I first off don't really understand it. If you're on wherever you listen to the audio podcast, rate, review, and subscribe there as well. We greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get rolling. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag, our good friend Tyler Alexander over at LPT Realty. Don't go anywhere. We're back next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
We're back. All right. Texas isn't. Anyway, very quickly, and I know that in the title of the show we have the Rufino's Rants. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we do have to talk about Cory Raymond. Just want to bring this up because it was all over social media today and thought it would be a good topic to talk about. So in case you missed it, Alabama has had a couple of departures when it comes to their just team in general. I mean, it's not necessarily one position group. There have been players along their entire team that have hit the portal, no specific position. Mainly some of them, I think you could lean and say that it was defense, but it was reported yesterday that Desmond Ricks, the former 5-star who reclassified, came down to LSU and Alabama there at the end. I'm sure a lot of you remember him. Did not see the field for Alabama this year. Desmond Ricks let it be known to really anybody that would listen, as there was a lot of reporting that he would like to make a visit to LSU. Then told a site that he did not believe that Brian Kelly wanted him to come back. That's his words, not mine. If you want the link, you want us to show you, that is not what I said. Here's what I think on Desmond Ricks. Number one, there are, and this is a good lesson to anybody. Now, a lot of you are probably either the same age as me, around your mid-30s, maybe even early 40s. Hell, you might be a little bit older than that. I think this is a good lesson for a guy like Desmond Ricks, who I don't want to say left LSU at the altar last year, but look, man, I mean, you know how that recruitment went down there at the end. At the very last moment, flipped to Alabama and was a part of the Crimson Tide team this past season. Do I think the young man is talented? Yes, I do. I 100% believe that Desmond Ricks is very talented. Do I think he's going to remain in the SEC? Yeah, I do think that he'll probably remain in the SEC. I think he's that talented to do that. But when you go into the transfer portal, and you select a guy, I think that there's a different way that you do things. Now, a guy like Trey Amos, who you were also after that went to Alabama last year, is another young man that hit the portal that I 1,000% would go after. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying, well, what about the 85 scholarship limit? What about this? What about that? The way that I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, you do not have to get into that 85 scholarship limit until August. With all of that being said, he could come, meaning Trey Amos, could come and play and start and be CB1 for you immediately, right now. Could happen. Now, will that happen? I have no earthly idea whatsoever if that will happen. I know that I would probably take the young man because I saw him in the SEC. By the way, was not a starter all year. Would come in off the bench, whether it be rotationary or whether it be due to injury, and almost led their entire team in pass breakups and did not see the snaps as the other two first-round corners that Alabama did have. I do think that Desmond Ricks has a connection at LSU, and the connection that he has at LSU tried to bring him back and ultimately was stopped in doing that. In my personal opinion, and some things that in whispers that I hear, mainly due to the fact of how it ended, and good on LSU. Now, I know that you will say, well, Blake, we can take all the five-star corners we can get. I don't necessarily disagree with that, and I think the young man can play. But I do think that there is something to be said when you build a culture, okay, that maybe that not happen. Now, you could say the same thing for Trey Amos, but Trey Amos never led on LSU in any form or fashion that he was going to be here, come here, had even committed here. He always said that he was going to go to the best place that thought benefited him. He went to Alabama. Now, you could make the argument it might have been the best thing for him, mainly due to the fact that you fired Robert Steeples, you fired Kerry Cooks, your secondary was really bad. You don't think that those guys got developed under those two DB coaches. And for all of that to say, and all of that, you had Nick Saban. Now, doesn't bother me. I think that you need a CB1 right now. And I think the kid can do it. Now, flip to the other side of that coin. Do I know or think that LSU is going to go get him? I have not heard that yet. But it's just an opinion. And I've seen enough from that young man who is from this state, St. Martinville, is from this state that can play. 100%, 1,000% would go and take him and bring him back to LSU. Speaking of corners, I know why you're here. I know why you're here because it was announced today and the story broke today that Cory Raymond is set to return to LSU. Obviously, you know the story. If you're an LSU fan of Cory Raymond, you know the last 2 years he was at Florida. And from 2021, 8-9 years since then, since 2014 or 2012, I think. So over 10 or close to 10 years, Cory Raymond was the DB's coach or corners coach at LSU. We have talked about Cory a lot, and there's one thing that I have said, and I'm not going to turn away from. I'm going to continue to say what I've been saying. Just to refresh what has happened in the defensive back room under Cory Raymond since, let's just even use the national title team in 2019 when he was here at LSU. In 2019, LSU was 51st in passing yards allowed, 127th in 2020, 91st in 2021, 74th when he went over to Florida in 2022, and 70th this past season. I do think that there are, if you have concerns about the Cory Raymond hire, considering what has happened the last 5 years, whether it be just on the field or even some of the recruits not completely panning out maybe the way that you thought that they would. I don't blame you in having those thoughts. I don't blame you in having those concerns. I would have those concerns too, because when I look from 2019 to 2023 at what that unit that Cory has coached since that time frame over the last 5 years, 51st, 127th, 91st, 74th, and 70th in passing yards allowed, I do think that that's a very big question mark to say to yourself, hey, can Cory come back and change that room? Now, the reason, as an example, the last 2 years that you've gone in the portal for DB so much was because either one, the mass exited that you had, and two, because that position group over the last couple years in Cory's tenure was not recruited at a high enough level for it to be sustained. Now, I don't think all of that is his problem. We have talked about this. Do I mind Cory being back? No, I don't mind it. I just think that there are question marks that you have to, if you're being objective, have to look at. Now, the argument that I've gotten from a lot of you, if there is an argument that I've gotten from a lot of you, is this. Well, Blake, the last 4 years, the last 4 teams that he was on, they had chaos all around him. They weren't good football teams. Well, neither was his position group. It's not as if that he did not recruit at a high level. Now, Bo Pelini, the 127 year, I would make an argument, okay, that a lot of that doesn't have to do with him. And I could make the argument it doesn't have a lot to do with him. It had a lot to do with what Ed was doing. Ed wanted to run man-to-man coverage the entire time. But halfway through 2021, something changed. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ed Orgeron was officially announced that he was going to be fired, and Durante Jones started calling different defenses. Nothing got better. Now, I know that Derek Stingley did not return after Central Michigan. I do know that Elias Ricks did not return. He was allegedly he was injured. Ironically enough, didn't get injured at Alabama, nor did he get injured this year when he was in the NFL. I digress on that. But nothing got better. You were still 91st. Actually, after Ed, technically from a statistical standpoint, after Ed was released, you, by a stats comparison, I guess you will, or what you want to call it, got worse. Here's where I fall on Cory Raymond potentially or obviously being set to come back to LSU. I don't mind it because I do think that recruiting gets better. I think that you have DBs that are inside the state of Louisiana right now that you can go and get and recruit and get to commit and sign here. Cory can recruit. I don't think that anybody has made the argument that Cory can't recruit. You sure as hell haven't got it from this show. You probably haven't gotten it from any other show. But I do think that there's something to be said that can Cory, and I think it's the biggest question mark that he has to answer. Can Cory come back and get you back to where you were in 2016 when you're 19th in the country in passing yards allowed? 2017 when you were 18th in passing yards allowed? 2018 when you were 30th? Not the best, but you're still in the top 30. He has brought in, recruited, and developed a lot of guys here at LSU. The question becomes, how do you break down and look past the last 5? Because there have been a lot of coaches that have had a lot of success, specifically in 2016, 2017, 2018. Hell, even 2019. I'm going to make a comparison. It's not really a good one. But I know that a lot of you, as an example, are not high on a guy like Dabo. Stay with me. Blake, it's apples and oranges. You're right. It is apples and oranges. But in 2016 to 2018, 2019, Dabo Swinney was revered as the second best head coach in the country behind Nick Saban. Why? Because he was winning national titles. He was getting the national titles. Hell, we played against him in 2019. What are your thoughts about Dabo Swinney right now? Well, since 2019, Clemson has been on the decline. Now, parts of that has to do with NIL. Could make the same argument with Cory to some extent. What were your thoughts about Dabo then? What are your thoughts about him now? You might not like the comparison, but coaches can have had a reputation of being really good and things around them change, and you have to start asking questions. With all of that being said, I think you have a guy that knows the culture here. I think you have a guy that knows how to recruit here. And I think you have obviously a different head coaching staff that can help. I think you have a better coordinator. I think you have a better front seven staff that can help out the DB room and getting to the quarterback, which takes a lot of pressure off of your DBs. But I would be remiss to say that, look, in 2019, okay, you had 2 first-round corners. I know that Fulton went in the second, but you get what I'm saying. 2 guys that were elite. Now, I know that Derek Stingley was a freshman. That guy, are you seeing what he's doing in the playoffs right now? My point is that there has been a steady decline. I think Cory has the ability. Now, stay with me because I know some of you are in the chat are not necessarily agreeing. I do think that Cory 1,000% has the ability to come back here, come back to LSU, and make you back to what you were in DBU. I think that Cory, with that question mark being out there of the last 5 years, could easily mute everything. Mute my concerns. Mute anybody's concerns that you have. But you still have to, number one, hit recruiting and get those guys here, and you have to hit the field and get that better. Can you make that DB room better instantly? You do have some pieces there. Now, how does that room shake up with a new defensive staff? Does Sage Ryan stay at boundary corner? I don't believe that he will. I don't even know if Javian Toviano stays at boundary corner. But you do have some young pieces that you can work around and you can build around. And if you are a true developer, you can get those guys to a next level. You're really young in that room. You're very young in that room. Javian Toviano is going to be a sophomore. You're bringing in a crap load of freshmen. A crap load of freshmen. I do think that there is a potential maybe that you're not done completely at the boundary or even in the slot at corner. What does a guy like Trey Amos do? But Cory could mute any concerns that I have, you have, or anybody has by coming back and bringing back DBU. I did think it was funny that a couple of, and I didn't bring it up on the show. I know a lot of you asked. One thing that I will say is I do think that there is a chance. Well, how do I want to word this? Brian Kelly did not retain Blake Baker or Cory Raymond. Now, I will tell you this too. One note to bring in here. The Cory Raymond deal is not completely done. It probably does get there, but it is not finalized. Now, Wilson Alexander just reported that as well. If Cory Raymond is ultimately that guy, those are my concerns. Those are my concerns. Let me read this very quickly because it just got sent it. Wilson Alexander of The Advocate says, one thing to note that may not being noteworthy, but more than just procedure, a deal between LSU and Cory Raymond is not done, sources said. Probably gets there, but it is not finalized. Just wanted to throw that in there. But those are my concerns. HVL's dump truck. Jesus. Why? Why do you have to put that? Like, thank you for the super chat. It says Cory Raymond was the architect of DBU. Actually, Ron Cooper was the architect of DBU. Ron Cooper was. So, yeah. Come on, man. Don't make me read that out loud. Don't make me read that out loud. Go Tigers says, I love how track records don't matter if it's the last 5 years. The teams you were on sucked. Okay, so let's talk about that. Does it matter that Cory Raymond's last 5 teams that he was on, or, well, actually, the last 5 teams that Cory Raymond was on, to your point, Go Tigers, they didn't suck. One of those teams won a national title, and you were 51st in the country with 2 first-round corners. Christian Fulton was second round, but you get what I mean. You also had a guy like Cordell Flott that would get to the league, and he recruited him. Can't take that away from him. Cannot take that away from him. I just do think that there's something to be said. What are your thoughts on Dabo? What are your thoughts on coaches that in 2015, 2016 had lots of success, and now you have a different opinion of them? Like, what would your thoughts be? If you think that you're not having a concern, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to back off me having the concern there. I'm just not going to do it. Can Cory come here again? Wilson Alexander reporting that the deal is not completely done. Can he come back here? Can Cory Raymond come back to LSU and bring back DBU and the greatness that you had on defense? Yes. But again, as we mentioned, 51st in 2019 in passing yards allowed, 127th in 2020, 91st in 21, 74th in 22, and 70th in 23. Why do you believe that I should not have my concern? A lot of you like him. And look, some of you will be passive aggressive, take to Twitter and say, oh, well, Blake said this. I don't mind him coming back here. That's not my point. But if you want to be objective, that's it. That's me being what I see to be objective. Look, let me say this, Go Tigers, that's in the chat. Okay? If he comes back here and has lots of success, do you really think that I would hate it? Again, I understand the Dabo comparison. It's just one of many. It is apples to oranges. I told you earlier it was apples to oranges. But you got to take what you've seen over the last couple of years. If I told you, let me just ask this question. If I told you there's another coach that's out there, let's just say it was the Alabama DB's coach, okay? If it was the Alabama's DB's coach that had all the same success that Cory did, but at Alabama, but the last 5 years, and I read that exact thing off to you, what would your opinion be? You know what your opinion would be. Hey, I'm not bringing this up on screen. I appreciate the super chat. He says, sorry, Blake, I'm just really excited for LSU. It's not necessarily that I'm not mad at you or anything. I'm just not going to – I think there's a level of professionalism. I'm just not going to read your name. I appreciate the super chats. You can continue to send them. I'm just not going to read them on this show, man. I'm just not going to read them on this show. Jarvis Harmon says, secondary looks good with Zy Alexander – J.K. Johnson, Ashton Stamps will be the starters. Well, here's the thing. Zy Alexander is injured and might not be back until the middle part of the year next year with a torn ACL. J.K. Johnson, we have not seen play at LSU. Ashton Stamps, I do think, showed a lot of promise, at least for me, when we were at practice. So I brought this up, during when we went to LSU's practice during the bowl prep. And there were multiple times that he went up against a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. He dropped a pick. He batted another pass down. LSU then put out a video on social media of Ashton Stamps catching an interception on Garrett Nussmeier that was on Brian Thomas Jr. So I do think that we've seen times where he has shown promise. But I have question marks with some of the things that you have currently at LSU. Look, you got to prove it to people. I don't think that there's anything wrong with coming out here and saying there are things that you have to prove after what you did a year ago. You can't just always say, oh, well, we have that guy. Well, we have this guy. Well, we have that guy. You know what you did that with last year? Mason Smith's return. Mekhi Wingo's return. We thought that our defensive line would be pretty solid and good. Guys, it wasn't. You can blame Matt House for a lot of things. You're right. I think schematically this team was not coached well. I think he was a cancer in the locker room and could not reach players. But there does come a time when you line up and your opponent lines up across from you and you run basic zone reads that when you're getting blown off the ball, that doesn't have shit to do with Matt House. Not a damn thing. So I do think that your staff, guys, I think your front seven staff arguably is the best in the country. I fully believe that your front seven coaching staff is the best in the country. You cannot get better than what you just hired along your front seven. as Wilson Alexander just reported the deal not being done yet, if it is Cory, well, then I just have questions, and you can hate me for it all you want. All right, we do have some more super chats that are coming in here. Let's read them off. Power Hour LSU, my man Carter with a $199 super chat says, spot on. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I 100% appreciate it. Dylan Smith with a $199 super chat says, Amarion Walker better than Desmond Ricks. I would take Amarion Walker from Michigan right now. Saw him play at Ponche. 100% think that he would be a take, but there does come – and look, let's talk about this real quick because I don't think that I brought it up because you send me all this stuff on social media all the time, so let's talk about it. Every time a player that you think that has an LSU connection from the state of Louisiana, you send it to me. I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. You're not going to get every player. Mainly, for one, you do have a numbers crunch, and you're not going to cut as many people as you think. I still think LSU is going to have to get dudes along the defensive line, especially in the interior. I do think that there's an ability you get a corner or two. But when you do things like that and you're in a numbers crunch, there will be guys during the spring that hit the portal. It's going to happen. So prepare yourself. But I do think that LSU is just set, it feels like, at the current moment, unless they go out and get somebody. For example, CJ Daniels was a guy that they identified and thought could be a wide receiver one here. Cortez Hankton goes and gets him. Sounds good. They will make the numbers work. If you think that LSU will not make the numbers work to some form or fashion, if they believe and identify that there's a kid that can play here, you're wrong. You're simply wrong. They will figure out the numbers. And it's better to be able to figure out the 85 scholarship limit now than being under it every single year. Guys, how many years have we just not had the depth because we didn't have the 85 scholarship limit? We couldn't even come close to reaching it. Now you've surpassed it. I promise you this. I don't think you missed on everybody. You're going to hit a diamond in the rough somewhere in there. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. All right. We had a couple questions in reference to another coaching hire that was announced in reference to Jake Olson, the Missouri analyst. Just to reemphasize, because I see it inside the chat. Again, can be changing while I'm on this show. Guys, I've been with you for the last 41 minutes. Literally have been with you for the last 41 minutes. I do think that there is really good sourcing in the Jake Olson news that he could potentially be coming back to LSU. I'm just not in a spot currently with people that I talk to run that. I'm just not. I'm just not. So we'll wait and see. Fully believe that he will be back or could be back at LSU. Let's get to some of these super chats. Arctic Tiger with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you so much for sending us that. P. Scott with a $4.99 super chat says, I think the scheme of college football has changed so much that it's hard to stop the wide receivers in the last 5 years. Stingley got roasted by Smith. Okay. Here would be my argument to that, P. Scott. What do you say to Michigan after what they just did to Washington? Now, I know that their front seven got after Michael Penix, and that's 1,000% true. But they locked down Alabama the same way. They locked down everybody. They've locked down everybody. What is the argument for a place like Georgia? There are teams, okay, has the scheme around college football changed? Yes, 1,000%. Teams are more spread out. They are more of a triple option spread attack. Either you're going to run the zone read, you're going to get the ball out in the flat. Hell, Mike Denbrock did that a lot with Jaden Daniels last year. Do you do the read as a play action and run a seam down the middle of the field like what we saw Malik Neighbors do in the opening series against Alabama? Yes, triple option schemes and philosophy and plays have not changed in reference to you running it. The formations are completely different. How you use a dynamic quarterback like a Jaden Daniels changes all of that. But again, there are teams out there locking and shutting that down. This isn't just an SEC thing. Guys, I could make the argument that a year ago, Penn State had a number one corner, and they did not allow a lot of things with their secondary. There are teams that are doing it. I don't think that is an excuse to be 127th, 91st, 74th, and 70th with the guys that you have recruited. Another thing to add to that, okay, that I think that I did not intend on bringing up, but will. I'm old enough to remember where every year Cory Raymond was potentially leaving to go elsewhere, and it was leveraged for more money. How does Scott Woodward work that? Now, is the deal completely finalized? Wilson Alexander is reporting that it is not. Can things change? 100% things could change. This is the news in the way of the coaching cycle, and I just want to be forewarned. And I think Wilson is right in doing this. Until that paper has a pen that's, doing one of these numbers, if you're listening on the audio podcast, I'm just signing my name. Nothing is completely finalized until it is. Jeremy, with a $499 super chat on YouTube. Thank you so much, sir. Says Cory was never the DC. The players developed into NFL players, not practice squad. Talent was there. DCs were terrible. All right. I wasn't going to bring it up, but here we go. Was Dave Aranda terrible? Because Dave Aranda thought that he needed to bring in Bill Bush. Let me just say this too. And I want it to be very well known, because it seems as if from some of the chat and some of the super chats that I'm poo-pooing on Cory Raymond coming back here. I am not. Again, can you not have questions? I think the people that are out there that are thinking about this logically do have those questions. Dave Aranda thought to himself, who has been one of LSU's better DCs, that he needed a safeties coach. I'm not gonna argue with him. And that's coming off a year, guys, where your secondary was 18th in the country in passing yards allowed. I think there's something to be said there. Dave Aranda didn't suck. Chase with a $999 super chat says, Blake, if our defense gets much more better in the passing game defense after Cory gets hired, how much can you say that it was Cory or Blake Baker, or even just Blake Baker calling better plays on the defense? I think that that's a good question. I mean, look, you're going to have to give Cory credit no matter what, because if he does come in here and you take a drastic leap, guys, a lot like what happened with Robert Steeples in year one after getting a lot of those guys in the portal to come back, like Jared Bernard-Converse. You had Mekhi Garner, Joe Fouché, Greg Brooks, and you had a guy that you retained in a Jay Ward. I think both can take the equal amount of credit. I do think that there's a lot to be said about someone who's calling the plays, because I do think that Blake Baker is going to be much more aggressive in his play calling than what Matt House was. We saw from Texas A&M and Wisconsin, I think Brian Kelly had enough of Matt House being so passive, and he told him to start bringing the heat. it worked for them. And that is what Blake Baker is not going to sit on his heels. If Blake Baker comes to LSU and does not send the pressures like he did at Missouri, I will start having to ask the question, is that a Brian Kelly philosophy? Or because the last two coordinators were not very keen in on doing that. I don't think it's a Brian Kelly thing. I think he obviously wants to send the pressure because I think that even around the Texas A&M game, he had made up his mind and made up a decision. That's why you saw defensive philosophy change. Guys, we had not seen LSU blitz all the live-long day, all the live-long year, and all of a sudden they just start sending blitzes against A&M and Wisconsin, and I'm supposed to sit here and believe, even though I was told that this was not true, that I'm supposed to believe that they made a final decision on Matt House at the Wisconsin game, that they made it based off of a Jocks to Say video of Mekhi Wingo not wanting to be anywhere near or around him. That's BS. That is BS. I do think, though, you have to give both of them credit, and I really hope that Cory can come back here. If he is ultimately going to be finalized as the guy, I do hope that he gets it back to where it was pre-2019. Dane Bergeron says, Blake, or sends a $10 super chat. Thank you, Dane. Says, Blake, I always appreciate your frankness. Spot on assessment. I would have preferred Chevis Jackson as the DB coach since I could not raise enough money to lure away Brandon Taylor away from hunting. Yeah, you're not going to sorry to tell you this, Dane. I don't think you're going to be able to lure enough money away from Brandon Taylor for him to stop hunting. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for that, Dane. Brian Turner with a $4.99 super chat says, Blake, people are worried Raymond could be like Kerry Combs of Ohio State, legendary cornerback or CB who simply lost his touch, but I believe Raymond's still got it. I believe that there's a lot to be said that Cory's still got a lot in the tank. I still think Cory's got a lot in the tank in reference to recruiting. Now, I think he did some good things at Florida. I think that there were a lot of things that happened with him there that also weren't all completely his fault. I think Billy Napier in and of itself is a dumpster fire. But you can't have, like, so for example, let me give you an example. We had Gator Dave on here. Our good buddy covers the Florida Gators. Guys, they had multiple 4-star high recruits that Florida got in recruiting. A couple of 5-star guys that just did not see the field. So, and when they did see the field, Jaden Daniels went bananas on them. Elite Neighbors went bananas on them. I mean, it would be one thing to say you can't judge last year's Florida team against this year's LSU team because of Jaden Daniels just going otherworldly, winning the Heisman. You got 2 first-round wide receivers that went just bananas in their own right. But I'm old enough to remember in 2022 when LSU went into Gainesville and Jaden Daniels went stupid on Florida. Guys, that's 2 first-year head coaches. You can't give me that Florida was in a worse position than LSU was and brings up a whole different conversation that you could have. When Brian Kelly and Billy Napier both came to their respected places that they're at now, obviously Brian Kelly at LSU, Billy Napier at Florida. Florida was not even remotely close to being in a worse position than LSU was. LSU played a bowl game with 39 scholarship players. Brian Kelly comes in, completely revamps everything that was going on, completely different amounts of success. There were guys that still was on that team and remained at Florida when that staff got there. That's not it. You can't have LSU being 90-something in passing yards allowed and fire Robert Steeples, and even in 22 had a better secondary. Then you look and say, well, Florida was in a better situation from a holistic standpoint than LSU was when Brian Kelly was here. Guys, 39 players is 39 players. You had there was a time when you had Garrett Nussmeier in your quarterback room. That was it. Max Johnson at the portal. You got Miles Brennan, considering things. Is he going to retire? Is he not? Is he going to enter the portal? Is he not? What is he going to do? You got Walker Howard coming in, okay? But that kid is coming in as a freshman. He's not technically even in the room yet. And then you go and get Jaden Daniels. Those situations were never the same. Florida was always in a better situation than LSU was until Brian Kelly got here. Now, if Brian Kelly brings back Cory, obviously he wants that room to be better recruited, and he wants to hope that you can rekindle that magic to bring him back here. Again, not poo-pooing if he comes back here. Do not misunderstand what I am saying. I think that two things can be true at once. When two things are true at once, I can think that Cory can come back to LSU and dominate, bring you back to the DBU status that you've had. I also can have the thought process and thinking, well, look, since 2019, the secondaries have had a massive decline everywhere Cory has been. Two things can be true at once in reference to, does he still have it? Yeah. I mean, you can give him the shot to see if he can come back and do it. The bottom line is two things can be true. And if Cory Raymond nobody wants LSU and defensive-wise to get better than I'm sure you, me, every LSU fan that's not even listening to the show, everybody wants them to be better. You would be crazy to not want them to be better. Guy could have had really a lot of amounts of success here, and then you still have questions on a return. Okay. Ed, with a $20 super chat, thank you so much. Says, ask Blake, will players over 2,400 in the portal be in perpetuity? Thank you, Ed. Maybe. That number always gets skewed, though, Ed, to be honest with you, because there are a lot of players in the portal, but if I'm not mistaken, a number like that is like all athletes, correct? Here's the truth about the portal really quickly, and because we got to get to a really quick commercial. Here's the truth on that, Ed. Players aren't always going into the portal because they want to. Guys, look what Deion Sanders did. I mean, Deion just basically cut everybody that he did not want and told him to hit the portal because I got my bags, and I call him Louis or however he said it, and he cut players. I mean, he went to Colorado and cut dudes. He did not let people stay around. He cut people, and it bit him in the ass. But the old saying is the grass is not always greener, and it's not. It 100% isn't. So, yeah. Okay. Got a couple more things to talk about, too. I see y'all arguing in the chat. Boy, y'all getting after it. Y'all getting after it, man. Hi, I don't even know who this is, but he says Raymond not coaching the defense, bro. He is coaching the defense. He's coaching a part of the defense. Kenny Ford says, hashtag ask Blake, can we talk about Pete Carmichael and who you feel the Saints will possibly interview for OC? Yeah, we can talk about that. Also, Kenny, we did an interview with our good friend John Hendricks from Saints News. It's on our YouTube channel. You can go check that out too. He has a lot more intel about who they could potentially hire than I do, but I will give my thoughts on that. Travis Dyson, what's up, Trav? Says, you're right about Cory, Blake. Speak your mind. I will. Milky Dreams with a $199 super chat says, so Bush hired 2018-2019, then pass defense got worse. It didn't get worse. It got worse when Bush left. I don't know what this means, but Go Tiger says, great show, Blake. We can't get any worse, but we should be much better. I agree with that. We can't be much worse. I mean, you're gonna be better. You're gonna be better. Because you're right. You could be much worse. I don't think that you will be. All right, let's do this. Let's get to a very quick commercial break. Everybody stop. Stop right now. Do us a favor. Hit that like and share if you're on Facebook. Share to all those social media groups. Share to your own social media pages. If you're on YouTube, man, there is like over 700 of you in here. Do us a favor. 700 people already in the show and only 206 likes. What is that about? What is that about, man? All right. Quick commercial break. Pete Carmichael will go around your SEC. If you do have a question, thought, concern, put them inside the chat, or the best way is send the super chat in. That way that you know it will be read. Stay with us. We got more to talk about. We do that next. Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements.
By the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vicnair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
A quick little sourcing info note. Sources. I have heard from multiple people that there is a strong potential that Jaden Daniels is moving his way inside the top 5. Now, there is a long journey before well, maybe not a long journey. I mean, April's not necessarily that far away, but there is a lot of chatter out there. Look, have a lot of friends, went to college with, either played with, whatever, that are either NFL scouts. I have a really good buddy of mine that's a coach in the SEC. A lot of them are scouts in the NFL ranks. Like 4 of my really good friends are scouts in the NFL ranks. One of them, for a team that has a really high draft pick, told me that Jaden Daniels is number 2 on their board. And that if the guy that was selected above him were gone, that they have had nothing but vast discussions about Jaden Daniels if they would make him their selection inside the top 5. Now, there's a long way to go. Trades could happen. No telling what happens at a combine. I do think Jaden Daniels goes to the combine if he throws and absolutely dominates. I think that when, not if, he has a really strong pro day, he will dominate there as well. Just thought I would pass it along. There is a lot of potential for Jaden to rise. Now, my team, which we'll talk about in just a moment, not next, but in just a moment, the New Orleans Saints, I do not know if they will move all the way up to take a Jaden Daniels. I wish they would. I really wish that they would, because I would hate to see Jaden Daniels end in the NFC South for a team that you do not like. So, yeah, you better get on it. You better get with it. Oh, well, their offensive line sucks. They could hurt Jaden. Well, that's true, too. But Jaden runs a 4.3, and Bryce Young probably runs a 4 ever after this year. Okay, very quickly, we had a lot of questions inside the chat, but let me get to this super chat from Danny Girl first. She says, Baker, meaning Blake Baker left LSU and had huge amounts of success outside of LSU. That's true. The last 2 years that he had in Missouri were game-changing for him. She said, Cory Raymond left LSU and failed and was fired. There are justified questions, no DBU talk until proof seen. I do think that is a fair assessment that Danny Girl brings up, mainly due to the fact that, yes, Blake had a lot of success. Now, look, was fired as a linebackers coach and then was the DC at Missouri. He got fired up in a sense. And look, I do think that Missouri is a little bit better led, obviously, under Drinkwitz than what's going on in that dumpster fire at Florida. But I'm old enough to remember that there were so many articles written about Eli Drinkwitz before this past season. If he was getting fired, and if they did fire Eli Drinkwitz in the middle of the season, could Blake Baker potentially be the interim and give him a run and see what would happen with him as their interim head coach? I'm old enough to remember literally 6 months ago that being a massive thing around Mizzou, that being a massive thing nationally, that Eli Drinkwitz could be behind Jimbo at number 2 as the coach that is on the hottest of seats. So Blake Baker and Eli Drinkwitz has a lot to thank Blake Baker for, because there were times that offensively they couldn't get a damn thing going. I mean, guys, think about Mizzou as an example against Ohio State in that bowl game. Blake, there's so many players that opt out. That's really true. But all those players that opt out for Ohio State, and Mizzou barely could get past the 50 at times, had a horrible offensive performance, and Blake Baker just shut Ohio State down. Blake, they were down their third quarterback at Ohio State. Very true. But he did exactly what he was supposed to, which was what? Guess what? Wait for it. He shut him out damn near. That's what you're supposed to do. Oh, well, they faced a shitty team and a shitty offense that didn't have a lot of players because of opt-outs. Well, he clapped those Buckeye cheeks, didn't he? Just like he clapped those Josh Heupel cheeks, didn't he? Very good point. Very good point, Danny Girl. This is one of many. One of a lot, actually, I should say. He-Man 70525. He-Man asks inside of the chat, do you think BK would bring Tommy Rees back as an analyst? So there is some sourcing in articles, not from your boy Truly. But there is some sourcing that's out there that South Alabama could potentially want to look at Tommy Rees as their head coach. I would not be shocked if that happened. I also wouldn't be shocked if it didn't. I don't know if I just feel, and could be wrong, that we would have heard some chatter by now and could even go into tomorrow. Like, I really thought, for me, He-Man was going to go through the week, and if nothing was really buzzing around Tommy Rees and LSU, especially at OC, I was going to be like, okay, well, it seems like they've passed. I have not, to the extent of heard anything on Tommy Rees, again, could change at any single moment. This is coaching, and this is a coaching search. Anything could happen. At the end of the day, though, man, I would not be shocked if he came back as an analyst. I don't think that Brian Kelly could sell to the fan base that making Tommy Rees your OC when Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton have done what they've done. It's not sellable. Now, he could go to the point and place where he says to himself, well, I don't give a shit what you think, which is fair, which is 1,000% fair. You pay that man to make the decisions. It's not sellable because Tommy Rees, unfortunately, is on he would go anywhere. Like Tommy Rees goes anywhere on the hottest of seats. Anywhere at the hottest of seats. Because there's just an unfortunate negative negative thought around him. Just is, man. Just is. Okay. Before we get out of here, I do want to talk about Pete Carmichael very quickly. But let me get to this super chat from Rodney. Rodney with a $4.99 super chat says, it was more than just coaching. Cory Raymond and Billy Napier just wasn't on the same page and didn't seem eye to eye. That's fair. I think that's fair. I think Billy Napier is the dumpster fire. I don't know if they get through halfway through next year, Rodney, and Billy Napier isn't fired. I don't see – I just can't necessarily envision a scenario where he makes it through the entire year. Maybe he does. Maybe he surprises everybody. I just don't see it. They have the toughest schedule in the country next year. Florida, by question, definitely the toughest month of December than anyone in the country. Maybe, I don't want to say in the history, but God dog, do they have a tough schedule. I just don't see it, man. I just don't see it. Let me bring up one point, Rodney, to what you just said. Then that's a lot of people he hadn't seen eye to eye with either. I mean, look now. A lot of DCs, a lot of different, not a lot of change. And I just, we live in a world where it's a microwave society, man, and people forget things. I remember when you had national media, Ryan Clark, but national media that was running out there like bitching at Brian Kelly, okay, in reference to some of the things that he did. Okay. All right. Some of it could be fair. I mean, everybody has things that they don't agree with. That's fair. Make Cory Raymond the DC because nobody's hiring him as the DC. Literally, Florida, just brought in a head coach that I am very familiar with, a former head coach, and Ron Roberts at Southeastern Louisiana was a DC at Auburn this past year. They could have easily, actually, technically, if you want to be technical about it, have brought in 3 different DCs to some extent in the last 3 years under Billy Napier, our last 3 coaching cycle tenures. Cory Raymond was never one of them that they promoted to it, ever. So Cory has wanted some of those roles before, and no one's given it to him. Why? Why? Cali Creations, DK says, would you say that it's important to keep Sloan at all costs, especially for us to get Underwood? Let me just say this. I am not going to be, how do I want to say this without just people absolutely roasting me? I don't think, DK, that you can be held hostage by a recruit. I don't think that there's you keep Joe Sloan at all costs because you need Bryce Underwood, which you do. And I love Bryce Underwood. You got to make the right coaching hires, though, too. Now, I do think in this particular situation, Okay, because we've seen Joe Sloan call plays at LSU and have a crap load of success. I mean, I know it's one game. It is what it is. I just would promote Cortez Hankton and Joe Sloan. It's what I would do. I would have questions if you didn't. I would have the same amount of questions that I had and brought up here tonight if you didn't. I don't get paid $10 million to make those decisions. I don't want to say it's at all costs, but it's closer to being at all cost than not at all. Rodney with a $199 super chat says Billy's in over his head. Sure. It's fine. I again, don't disagree. 100% don't disagree with that. But you had really talented guys that you didn't really do with. Okay. Let me talk about this before we get out of here. In case you missed it, longtime assistant, actually the longest tenured assistant coach in the NFL was with the Saints the last 18 years. Pete Carmichael was fired today from the New Orleans Saints as Dennis Allen is going to be making a lot of shakeups for and around New Orleans. It's funny because I had somebody send my own clip to me today that on January the 18th, so pretty much a year ago, we made it a shorts. You can go look at it on the YouTube channel. Started it by saying, fire Pete Carmichael, fire Pete Carmichael. And I'm just like, yeah, you tell him, Blake. Year too late, though. A year a little too late. Pete, obviously, and there's record of this, came out and saying he not really wanting to have the responsibility of being the OC. They promoted him anyway, and now you're looking for a new one. You got to make that move. Firing Pete Carmichael, if you're not going to let go of Dennis Allen, is the number one move that you have to make. Along with a lot of other offensive coaches that were let go today, if you're going to give Dennis Allen, which it seems like they're going to, why I don't know, why they're giving DA another shot, another year at this, they gotta knock this one out of the park. The last 2 years under Carmichael, and was the same reason that I'd said, the last 2 years under Carmichael were just below average. They were the least innovative offense in the country when it came, or the NFL, when it came to motions, when it came to creative play calling. They were basic. They were like your normal white girl at Starbucks basic. I want a mocha loco, yeah. I want pumpkin spice batch. Like, that's how basic they were. Your basic white girl at Starbucks is exactly how Pete Carmichael calls plays offensively. Basic, vanilla, maybe had a little cream here and there every now and then, Pauls. But regardless, they were basic. Pete Carmichael had to go. There was no other choice. Drew Brees, when he was still the quarterback with the Saints, we know the tensions that Brees had with Carmichael in the play calling. There's a reason that when Sean came back, he wasn't technically always calling plays. He let Pete do it. And Drew just said, hey, yo, ain't going to happen here. Something's got to change with this. I don't like the way that things are being called. If Drew Brees did not like Pete Carmichael calling plays, what in the Sam fuck did you think that anybody else would be able to do? Excuse my language, because this is not rocket science, or it's not rocket science. It is not rocket science to see and believe that a first ballot Hall of Famer, Drew Brees, did not like the way that Pete Carmichael called plays. And yet, what did you do? What did you do, Gail? What did you do, Mickey? You elevated Dennis Allen. You elevated Pete Carmichael to the full-time OC, and it backfired on you. Everybody and their mama knew that it would backfire on you. You knew that the best player in Saints history, Drew Brees, did not like Pete Carmichael calling plays. Loved him as a guy. Loved him as a coach. Knew that he was one of the best just coaches, but wasn't a good play caller. And there was nothing wrong with that. You try to keep a culture that was built by Sean Payton. Sean Payton's not here anymore. He's in fucking Denver. You can't keep the same culture when the guy that built it isn't here. There's a reason you went 7-9 when Sean Payton, or at least 7-9 the year that he wasn't here, and then the year immediately following that you did the same thing. Because you could not rebuild the culture that the man built himself. When he was out of the building, you couldn't recreate it. You couldn't do it. I think that these Saints make some of the dumbest and outright stupid decisions when it comes to coaching and personnel. They're not a really well-run franchise at times. You just so happen to have one of the best coach that you've ever had in Sean Payton, with the best player that the Saints have ever had, best quarterback, first ballot Hall of Famer in Drew Brees. That's the reason you had the success that you did. You built teams around him. Good. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You did it. Congratulations. You did exactly what you were supposed to. Want a cookie? It frustrates me to see how basic that the Saints have become. And you're so talented, being basic gets you 9-8. Like I said, Pete Carmichael's offenses were like the white girl at Starbucks. Basic. Give me the pumpkin spice batch. Basic. Vanilla. Wear skinny jeans with Van head ass. White people, raisins, and potato salad have an ass. Put okra in your gumbo have an ass. Oh, wait, no, okra could be acceptable. Tomatoes in your gumbo have an ass. Basic. Yeah. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Good show. Thumbs up if you thought it was a good show. Thumbs down if you didn't like it. Won't hurt my feelings if you didn't. See you guys tomorrow, man. We're out of here. Peace.